The morning sun crept slowly over the crowded streets, where the noise of traffic and footsteps blended with the cries of street vendors. In the middle of this busy world walked a young boy with torn shoes, carrying a bundle of newspapers under his arm. His clothes were old and patched, but his eyes carried a brightness that poverty could not steal. Every morning he woke up before dawn, helped his mother with small chores, and then rushed out to earn whatever he could. It was not much, but it was enough to keep food on the table for him and his mother, who had been struggling ever since his father disappeared from their lives years ago. The boy was no stranger to hardship. While other children went to school with bags full of books, he carried baskets of fruit or stacks of newspapers. He would shine shoes at the corner of the street or run errands for strangers. Sometimes people ignored him, sometimes they smiled, and sometimes they gave him a few extra coins when they noticed his politeness. He never complained. He knew his mother worked long hours at home, sewing clothes for neighbors, and it was his responsibility to help. Despite his struggles, he had a kind heart. He never turned away when someone asked for help. If he saw an older person struggling to cross the road, he would run to hold their hand. If a shopkeeper needed help carrying a heavy box, he would step forward without asking for payment. Deep down, he carried a dream of one day studying, of sitting in a classroom with other children, learning about the world beyond his narrow streets. But he had no way to pay for books or uniforms. So he buried that dream quietly in his heart and focused on surviving each day. One afternoon, as the boy finished selling his last stack of newspapers, he felt his stomach grumble with hunger. He had not eaten anything since morning, except for a dry piece of bread. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold, and he thought of rushing home to his mother, who would be waiting with a small pot of rice and lentils. He walked quickly, clutching the few coins he had earned, already imagining the relief of resting after a long day. As he passed by a busy grocery store on the corner, his eyes caught sight of something unusual. An older man, dressed in plain but neat clothes, was struggling with heavy bags of groceries. The bags were full of rice, vegetables, and bottles that clinked against each other. The man's hands trembled as he tried to balance them, and it was clear he was finding it difficult to carry everything at once. People walked by, some even glancing at him, but no one stopped to help. The boy paused for a moment. He was tired and hungry, but his heart would not let him ignore the sight. Without hesitation, he ran toward the man and spoke softly, "Let me help you, sir." The man looked surprised. His face was lined with age, and his eyes carried a kind of weariness. But when he saw the boy's earnest smile, his expression softened. Without arguing, he handed one of the heavy bags to the boy. The boy staggered slightly under the weight, but quickly adjusted, holding it tightly against his chest. Together, they began walking down the street. The boy noticed that the man walked slowly, as if deep in thought. Wanting to make the moment less silent, the boy began to speak. He talked about his small jobs, how he spent his days helping people, and how his mother worked hard at home. He admitted, almost shyly, that he wished he could study one day, but they simply did not have enough money. The man listened quietly. From time to time, he nodded, but he said little. The boy did not think much of it. He was simply glad to have someone listen. There was something about the man's presence that felt different, gentle yet powerful, as if he carried secrets that no one could see. When they finally reached the corner of the street where the man lived, the boy set the heavy bag down near the door. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. "Here you go, sir," he said cheerfully. "I hope you get home safe." The man studied the boy carefully, as if memorizing every detail of his face. Then, in a quiet voice, he asked, "What is your name, son?" The boy hesitated, a little surprised by the question, but answered politely. He also told him which street he lived on. Without realizing the importance of what he was saying, the man smiled faintly, his eyes glistening for a brief moment. He reached into his pocket and offered the boy some money, but the boy quickly shook his head. "No, sir," he said softly. "I didn't do it for money. I just wanted to help." The man's hand froze in midair, and a deep silence passed between them. For a long second, he simply looked at the boy, as though fighting back emotions he could not show. Finally, he placed his hand gently on the boy's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you, son. You don't know how much this means to me." The boy smiled again, nodded, and turned to walk back home. Completely unaware that this small act of kindness would change his entire life forever. The boy walked away with a light heart, never imagining the weight his small action carried. For him, helping someone was nothing new. It was part of who he was. Yet, for the stranger, the moment lingered. He stood by his door long after the boy had left, staring at the grocery bag, thinking about the boy's honesty, his humility, and those few words about his mother and his dreams. Something about the child's presence touched him deeply, but the boy remained unaware. That evening, the boy returned to his small home. His mother greeted him with a tired smile, her hands rough from hours of sewing. He placed the few coins he had earned on the table, proud that he could contribute something. They shared a modest meal of rice and lentils, sitting on the floor because they did not own a proper dining table. Yet, in that tiny home, there was warmth, laughter, and love. The boy never once complained about what they lacked. Instead, he told his mother about the man he had helped with the groceries. His mother listened quietly, her eyes softening at the mention of his kindness. She always told him that doing good for others would one day return to him in ways he could not imagine. The boy only smiled, not knowing how true her words would become. The next day, the boy followed his usual routine. He was up before the sun, ready with his bundle of newspapers. The air was cool, and the streets were quiet, except for a few other vendors setting up for the morning. He ran from house to house, delivering papers, shouting greetings to familiar faces. But throughout the day, he kept remembering the man with the groceries. There had been something different about him, something in his eyes, something unspoken. Later that afternoon, as the boy finished another long day, he found himself near the same grocery store. To his surprise, the old man was there again, carrying another heavy load. The boy rushed forward immediately. "Let me help you again, sir," he offered, without hesitation. The man smiled, this time less surprised, almost as if he had been waiting for the boy. "You have a kind heart," he said softly as he handed over one of the bags. As they walked together, the man began asking gentle questions. Where did the boy go to school? Did he enjoy studying? What was his dream for the future? The boy answered honestly. He explained that he loved learning but had stopped school because his mother could not afford the fees. Still, he read whatever newspapers he carried each morning, and sometimes he borrowed old books from neighbors. His eyes lit up as he spoke about his dream of becoming someone who could change his mother's life, to give her comfort after years of sacrifice. The man listened carefully, each word sinking into his heart. The boy's story stirred something deep within him, something he had locked away for many years. He remembered his own youth, his own struggles, and the choices he had made long ago. He studied the boy's face once more, noticing the sharp line of his jaw, the way his eyes shone with determination despite hardship. It was as though the child was a reflection of a part of his own past. When they reached the man's home, the boy placed the groceries gently by the door again. The man turned to him, his voice quieter than before. "You remind me of someone I once knew," he said, almost as if speaking to himself. The boy tilted his head curiously, but did not ask further. He only smiled, gave a polite nod, and prepared to leave. Before he could go, the man stopped him. "Tell me, son, where do you live?" The boy gave the name of his street, and the man's heart skipped a beat. He knew that area. He knew the people who lived there. Memories he thought were buried forever came rushing back. His chest tightened as he realized just how close the boy lived to a story from his own. Past a story he had never dared to revisit. The boy waved goodbye, still unaware of the storm of emotions swirling inside the stranger. To him, it was just another day of helping someone. He ran home eagerly, excited to share the little story with his mother. She smiled again, her eyes glistening with quiet pride. "Kindness is never wasted," she whispered, brushing his hair back gently. That night, however, the man could not sleep. He sat in his large study, surrounded by shelves of books and fine furniture, but his thoughts kept returning to the boy. Every detail played over and over: the honesty in his words, the similarity in his features, the mention of his hard-working mother. The man poured himself a glass of water, but his hand trembled. For years he had lived with success, wealth, and recognition, but all of it felt strangely hollow in this moment. The truth was pressing down on him, a truth he had ignored for far too long. He pulled open a drawer, took out an old photograph, and stared at it. It was a picture of a woman he once loved, a woman he had been forced to leave behind because of family pressure and choices he regretted. His breath caught in his throat as the memories flooded back. Could it be possible? Could the boy he had met, so humble, so kind, truly be the son he never knew he had? Sleep never came that night. Instead, the man stared into the darkness, haunted by the thought that fate had brought the boy to him for a reason. The boy, on the other hand, slept peacefully in his small room, curled up on a thin mattress beside his mother. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. The night passed slowly for the man. He sat in silence, staring at the old photograph on his desk. The picture was faded, but the woman's face still carried the same warmth he remembered from long ago. He traced the edge of the photograph with trembling fingers, his heart heavy with regret. She had been the love of his youth, the one person who had believed in him before he became wealthy. But life had pulled them apart, his family disapproved, and he had made choices that led him far away from her. For years he buried the memories under layers of business meetings, luxury, and the constant noise of success. Yet the boy's face, his words, his kindness, it was like the past had come alive again. He could not ignore the thought that kept returning to him. What if the boy is my son? The resemblance was there, not only in appearance but in spirit. The determination in his eyes, the way he carried responsibility on such young shoulders. It was exactly how the man remembered himself as a boy. And when the child mentioned his hard-working mother, the man's chest tightened painfully. He needed to know the truth. The following morning, the boy went about his day as usual. He sold newspapers, ran errands, and carried small packages for people. His mother had taught him to work honestly, no matter how little he earned. Yet something was different that day. A man in a car, parked a little away from the market, kept watching him. The boy noticed but thought nothing of it. He was used to people looking at him with either pity or curiosity. Inside the car, the man sat quietly, watching every move the boy made. He wanted to be sure. He wanted to see the boy not just as a helper, but in his world, among his people. He saw how the boy greeted everyone with respect, how he smiled even when tired, how he gave away his last piece of bread to a stray dog without hesitation. The man's heart clenched. He had everything: wealth, comfort, luxury. But he did not have this purity, this kindness. Later that afternoon, he followed the boy discreetly as he walked home. The streets grew narrower, the houses smaller. Laundry hung on ropes between buildings. Children played barefoot in the dirt, and the smell of cooked lentils floated from small kitchens. The boy finally turned into a modest house, its walls worn, its roof patched with tin. The man's steps slowed. His throat went dry as he saw a familiar figure open the door. It was her. The woman from his photograph. Her hair was streaked with silver now, her face lined with the years of struggle, but there was no mistaking her. She was the same woman he had once held close, the same woman whose absence had left a hole in his heart. She greeted the boy with a smile, touched his hair with tenderness, and pulled him inside. The man stood frozen, hidden in the shadows. His chest felt heavy, as if the world had pressed down on him all at once. His suspicion was no longer a guess, it was the truth. That boy was his child. His son. He turned away, his hands trembling. So many years had passed. So much time had been lost. Could he just walk into their lives again? Would she forgive him? Would the boy accept him? Questions tore through his mind, but one thing was clear. Fate had brought them together again, for a reason, and he could not ignore it any longer. That night, he could not eat. He sat in his grand dining hall, staring at a table filled with food, yet feeling an emptiness that nothing could fill. He thought of the boy eating simple rice and lentils, smiling as though it were a feast. He thought of the woman, still standing strong after all these years, raising their child alone without complaint. The weight of his choices pressed harder than ever. Finally, he made a decision. He would not remain a silent observer. He would face the past, no matter how difficult it might be. He owed it to the boy. He owed it to the woman he once loved. The next day, he prepared himself carefully. He did not dress in his usual expensive suits. Instead, he wore simple clothes, hoping not to frighten them with his wealth. He rehearsed words in his mind, but nothing seemed right. How could he explain years of absence in a single conversation? How could he ask for forgiveness when he had left her to carry such a burden alone? Meanwhile, the boy and his mother went about their day, unaware of the storm approaching their quiet home. The boy laughed as he showed her the extra coin he had earned that morning, proud of his effort. She smiled, though her eyes carried a sadness she never spoke of. Perhaps she still thought of the man she had lost, the one who never returned. As the evening sun painted the sky with shades of gold, there was a knock at their door. The boy rushed to open it, expecting a neighbor or a customer for his mother's sewing. Instead, he froze. There stood the man. The same man he had helped with groceries. His kind eyes looked softer now, almost vulnerable. The boy blinked in confusion. Why was he here? Behind him, his mother stepped forward, and the moment her eyes met the man's, the world seemed to stop. Her hand flew to her mouth, her knees weakened, and her eyes filled with tears. The boy looked from one face to the other, his heart pounding. Something unspoken was happening, something that would soon turn his entire life upside down. The boy stood frozen at the door, his small hands still clutching the wooden frame. The man's presence felt heavy, different from the quiet encounter near the grocery store. His eyes no longer held the same distant calm. Instead, they were filled with something deeper: pain, longing, and fear all at once. The mother gasped, her body trembling as she stared at him. The years had changed them both, but recognition came instantly. Her lips parted, and for a moment, no words came out. Memories she had tried to bury surged back, the nights she had cried. The days she had carried the weight alone. The face of the man who had once promised her the world but never returned. The boy looked between them, confused. "Mother, do you know him?" he whispered. Her eyes shimmered with tears as she reached out to the wall for support. "It can't be," she breathed. But it was. The man who had knocked on her door was the one who had disappeared from her life so many years ago. The silence was so thick it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. The boy's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing with questions. Why was his mother reacting this way? Who was this man really? Finally, the man took a slow step forward, his voice low and unsteady. "It's me," he said softly. I never thought I would see you again." The mother's eyes hardened. "After all these years, now you come?" Her voice cracked, carrying both anger and sorrow. "You left without a word. You don't know how I lived. You don't know how your son grew up without a father." The boy's breath caught. "Your son," the words echoed in his ears like thunder. His eyes widened as he turned to face the man again. "Son," he whispered, almost not believing it. "What do you mean?" The man's hands trembled as he reached forward, but he stopped halfway, afraid the boy would pull back. "Yes," he said, his voice shaking. You are my son. I didn't know. I was young, foolish, and forced into choices I regret every single day. I thought I had lost everything, but then I met you by chance. And now, here you are." The boy stepped back, his head spinning. His chest rose and fell quickly as he struggled to understand. The man he had helped carry groceries for was his father? The father he had long imagined, the one he had asked his mother about countless times. The one she always avoided speaking of. He was standing right in front of him. Tears filled his eyes as he turned to his mother. "Is it true?" Her shoulders slumped. She looked at her child with sorrow and nodded. "Yes, it's true. He is your father." The boy felt a storm inside him, anger for the years of absence, confusion for the sudden truth, and yet a strange sense of hope, because a part of him had always dreamed of this moment. He had spent so many nights imagining who his father might be, what he might look like, whether he cared. And now, the answer stood before him. The man dropped to his knees, unable to stand tall under the weight of his guilt. His expensive shoes pressed into the dusty floor, but he didn't care. Tears spilled freely down his face. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I can't change the past. I can't erase the pain. But if you let me, I want to make it right. I want to be a father to you, even if it's late. Please, give me that chance." The mother's eyes filled with both fury and pity. She had carried the burden for so long, and now the man who had abandoned her was begging for forgiveness. Her voice shook. "You left me to raise him alone. I worked every hour of the day just to feed him, just to clothe him. You don't know what we went through." The man bowed his head. "You're right. I don't deserve forgiveness. But when I saw him, when I saw how kind he was, how strong he was, I knew he was mine. And I knew I had to face you both. I cannot walk away again." The boy's small hands clenched into fists. His heart felt heavy with mixed emotions. Part of him wanted to run into his father's arms, to feel the warmth he had never known. Another part wanted to push him away, to punish him for the years of silence. He swallowed hard, tears sliding down his cheeks. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "Why after all this time?" The man looked at him, his eyes raw with regret. "Because life gave me a second chance. Because you gave me a second chance. When you helped me with my groceries, you didn't know who I was, but you showed me kindness I didn't deserve. That kindness woke something in me. It brought me here, to you." The boy's chest ached. He looked at his mother, who wiped her tears silently, caught between pain and relief. For the first time, their small home was filled with the weight of truth, a truth that hurt, but also healed. The man extended his hand, not forcing, not demanding, just offering. "I don't expect you to forgive me today. But let me try. Let me prove that I can be here for you now." The boy hesitated. His mind screamed with doubt, but his heart whispered something else. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped closer. He didn't take the man's hand yet, but he didn't pull away either. And in that fragile moment, the possibility of a family reunited began to take shape. The boy lay awake that night, staring at the cracked ceiling of his small room. His heart beat fast, his thoughts tangled like threads that refused to come apart. All his life, he had imagined who his father might be. Sometimes he pictured a kind man who would walk through the door and embrace him. Other times, he imagined a stranger who had abandoned them without care. Now the truth was more complicated. The man he had helped by chance was not only his father, but also a man who carried both regret and wealth beyond anything the boy could imagine. In the next room, his mother sat quietly at the edge of her bed. She held the old photograph she had hidden away for years. Tears slid down her cheeks as memories returned, memories of love, of loss, of choices that had scarred her. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. Could she forgive him? Could she let him back into their lives after so much pain? The following morning, there was a knock at the door again. The boy opened it cautiously. His father stood there, holding nothing but a small bag of fruit in his hands. He did not bring guards. He did not bring cars. He did not bring wealth to flaunt. He only brought himself. His eyes were softer, filled with hope. "I don't want to force my way in," he said gently. "But may I sit with you for breakfast?" The mother hesitated, her lips pressed tightly together. The boy looked at her, silently pleading. At last she nodded. The man stepped inside their humble home, looking around at the bare walls, the patched furniture, the tiny kitchen. Every corner screamed of the struggles they had endured without him. His heart broke again, but he kept quiet, sitting on the floor beside them as they shared their simple meal of rice and lentils. For the first time, the boy saw his father in a new light. He was not just a man with regrets. He was a man trying to change. He ate quietly, humbly, grateful for what was offered. The mother watched him carefully, still unsure, but she could see the sincerity in his eyes. Over the next few days, the man returned again and again. He did not come with promises of riches or speeches of regret. He came with small gestures, helping the mother carry water from the pump, mending the broken leg of their table, reading aloud from an old book the boy had borrowed. The boy began to smile more around him, his laughter returning in moments he hadn't known he missed. One afternoon, the boy asked a question that had weighed on him for years. "Father," he said quietly, tasting the word on his tongue as if unsure it belonged to him, "why didn't you come back before?" The man's eyes grew wet, and his voice cracked. "Because I was a coward. Because I let pride and fear decide for me. But when I met you that day, carrying my groceries with such kindness, I realized life had given me a chance to fix my mistake. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn it." The boy didn't answer right away, but he leaned closer, resting his small hand on his father's. That gesture said more than words ever could. Weeks passed, and slowly the bond grew. The man began to support the boy's education, ensuring he could return to school with new books and uniforms. He promised to help the mother so she no longer had to sew late into the night to survive. He did not try to erase the past. Instead, he built a new present, one brick at a time. The neighborhood soon noticed the change. They saw the boy walking with his father, saw the mother's tired smile replaced with one of quiet relief. People whispered, surprised at the twist of fate. But they also admired the boy's fortune. Yet the boy never forgot one thing: his life had changed not because of wealth, not because of chance, but because of one small act of kindness. He had helped a stranger without expecting anything in return. And that kindness had opened the door to the truth, to healing, to family. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange, the family sat together outside their home. The boy leaned against his mother while his father sat beside them, his arm resting gently around them both. For the first time in years, they felt complete. The man whispered softly, almost to himself, "I thought I had everything. Wealth, success, power. But I see now I had nothing until I found you." The boy looked up at him, his eyes shining. "And I thought I had no father. But I was wrong too." The mother closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. But this time they were tears of peace. The world around them remained noisy and harsh. But inside that little family, there was warmth and light again. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined them. What mattered was the present, the second chance life had given them, and so, from a simple act of kindness, a broken family was made whole again. Because sometimes, the smallest gesture has the power to change everything.